Helen. What is the market telling you? The market is telling you,
we don't trust you.
We don't trust you. We are not entirely sure you'll pay us back this money. We are not sure where this government will be in the next 2 years, in the next 5 years. We cannot trust our money with you in the long term. But you know, that is the 2 year, and by the 2 year, 5 year bonds in the market are pretty short term. The shortest term are the bills, the 91-day, the 182, and 364-day treasury bills. You know what's happening there? They are 100% oversubscribed. So what is the market telling you? And at very high interest rates. That last week, I think the rates for the 91-day was about 17.112, and then for the 182 was about 17.13 thereabouts, and for the 364 about 17 point. So those are very high interest rates, right? But people are saying to you, and the market is saying to you, we can give you, government of Kenya, our money, but let's do this thing of ours, this relationship, on a 90-day, 180-day. After that,
a hustler fund kind of.
After that, you pay us. Kwaheri, we do not know what is going to happen. You know, and it's very, very sad. And they say numbers don't lie. So soon enough, there will be nobody to lend to the government. Remember that this government had initially adopted a strategy of borrowing locally, saying that we will not be like our predecessor, we will not go to borrow abroad, we will borrow locally. So things are looking very hard. They have gone to even those countries like China, which they had said they would never borrow from. So the realities are hitting home real quick.
So stop borrowing.
But why are we borrowing? We are borrowing. And yesterday, like the narrative that the controller of budget gave, tunafuliza ndio tuende kwa bar tukunywe pombe. The Kenyan government is on fuliza, and after you fuliza, it's not that you're fulizaing to pay school fees, to start a biashara. No, you're fulizaing to go on a spend period, you know, to piga sherehe, so to speak. You know, if you look at just how much money the government is spending on fuel, refurbishment of offices, you know, apart from the fact of proliferation of offices that are meaningless to Kenyans. I mean, so we are saying, just stop this whole borrowing spree and come back home and think through the debt strategy.
That's number 3.
70% of our debt, of our foreign debt, is dollar denominated. Now, I'll give you an example of Kenya Airways. Kenya Airways went and borrowed it must have been 79.5 billion shillings. No, in USD. Right?
75 billion.
No. Converted in Kenya shillings, it's 79.5 billion.
79 billion worth of
USD.
Okay.
Right? About a year ago. We paid 2.4 billion shillings. Today, the loan stands at 89.5 billion after paying 2.4 billion. You know what has happened? The exchange rates have done us in. You know, so Kenya's debt, which 70% is dollar denominated, is going through that Kenya Airways story, that our debt continues to increase. So what we can do before we deal with the interest rates is to fast cap the borrowing. Right?
Okay.
I hope we are together with that.
We are together.
Right? I am. We will move from borrowing and now go to what is happening even in the devolved units. Currently, 727 billion pending bills. We have 727 billion pending bills. Never mind some of them, you know, I've been in the devolved units. I can tell you whenever governments are switching, whenever there's a transition, there are these bills that quickly come in to be paid by the next governor. And so therefore, especially legal fees, by the way, is one that really benefits from those transitions. And so we have to really find out how many of these spending bills are actually work that was done and delivered. But if this money, for instance, was released to the market, it would spur economic activity and go back to my question and my hypothesis on yielding incomes, right? All right. There is a loophole that we have seen in Article 223, which is on supplementary appropriation. This is a loophole that is used by national government and by all accounting officers to use money
To
and
spend
then
money without authority.
without authority, and then account for it later because it's in the law, it's acceptable, and and one of the things we are saying is that we must amend, even if it is a PFM Act, so that we have stringent procedures on how to go about, for instance, disaster management. We say there is El Nino, money is put aside, money has gone, now we don't have El Nino, we don't have the money, where do we go?
Yes.
And also, they're covered by the Constitution, where do we go, So we need, the legislative action for that. For the pending bills, I know that we have the prompt payment bill that's been someplace in Parliament, just doing its round, and we are calling, for quick enactment of that bill. Now, there is, over the years, we have seen poor choices and poor forecasts on, like I said, on revenues and on expenditure. That's got to come to an end. By the living within our means is no
longer an option.
It's no longer an option. It's just what we have to do.
These things that you're saying must happen.
Yes.
Dr. Karogo, when Siti was saying we've had these things before.
Yes.
All these stories,
yes,
we've heard them before.
I am sure.
Right? And all these stories have been told of this government.
Yeah.
They were told of the previous government.
Right.
But they didn't seem to listen.
Good.
Why doesn't it listen? Now, Azimio,
yes,
the partner parties of Azimio include ODM, Jubilee, DAP Kenya, NAC Kenya, and others. Jubilee, DAP Kenya, they were in that government that was doing all these things. That was increasing annual budget by over 500 billion shillings annually for 9 years, which left us at 3.2 trillion shillings. That was borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and ending up in the bar drinking most of it. That was not prudently managing our finances. Those are the ones that are advising this government now. And we expect that they're going to have a commonality of purpose that will benefit us Kenyans.
And considering that very many people in this current government who also happen to be in the majority party were also in Jubilee.
Yes.
In fact, that's what I wanted to correct.
But the same.
My friend Latif. There are people. If there is a proportion of this country that has never been in government, it is that sits in Azimio. Azimio has more parties that have not been in government than Kenya Kwanza. Kenya Kwanza are very smart people. All they did is switch positions quickly and hoodwink Kenyans into the next election. But if you look at it, everybody, almost 60% of those who sit in cabinet, making serious policy decisions, were in former parliament, or in the parliament. Your own William Ruto was a deputy president.
And deputy party leader.
Yes. Gachagua was member of parliament. Member. So, who is fooling who?
That's the question I'm asking.
So this thing...
That's the basis of my question, Dr. Karogo.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
The people who are sitting across the table as Kenya Kwanza, and those that are sitting on this other side of the table as Azimio, same people, same. Those that will argue and say, we are not in government, all right, you are collaborating in parliament. When budgets were rising from 2017, 2018, 2019, 19, 20, 21, 22, those budgets that were passed in collaboration between the then ruling and the then opposition factions of parliament, who are now sitting across each other at the table. And these other guys on this side are saying, reduce borrowing. You approved borrowing for the last 9 years. You're saying, stop overspending. You approved overspending for the last 9 years. They look at you and they're wondering,
True. Let me say this.
It's like somebody with whom you were in the club last night come and tell you, stop drinking. You look at somebody
and, we're not together.
I know.
In fact, you bought for me.
Last night. So this is what I want to say about that issue. I think let's separate issues here. If we now go into personalities, and this country will go to the dogs, because we will start pointing fingers. But me, I was not there. But then this one was there. I mean, I don't think that is where we should go as a country. Is to establish that we have a problem, and that problem is not because of anyone in particular. it is a problem that has built up over time. So do we sit and start saying, it was this, no, it was this? As Azimio, we are saying, these people had a chance to reverse what they thought the other government was not doing right. In fact, they campaigned on the ticket of reversal of those bad decisions. And Kenyans elected them on reversal of those bad decisions, those so-called bad decisions. But what have they done? They have continued with those bad decisions that they were campaigning. So we have found ourselves where we are. How do we get out of the hole? Do we get out of the hole from taking the stance which, for instance, in this national dialogue talks Kenya Kwanza had taken, that listen, we are the ones in charge, you wait for your turn to be in charge, we are in charge, we have a strategy on this issue of cost of living, let us take Kenyans on this dwindling path and leave us alone. And Azimio stood up and said, which Kenyans? Because Azimio then will need our own country where our people will not be taken through this dwindling path that you want to take your people to. You know, so we had that standoff. And they got to a point that they said, okay. So what are your proposals? So now let's call experts. I was in that meeting yesterday. Unfortunately, the CS Treasury could not come. The CS Energy could not come. Apparently, they're hosting the King. So we're waiting for them to finish hosting the King. And then we're going to hear from Treasury. We're going to hear from the Ministry of Energy on what then are the solutions they have, so that we compare with the solutions we have. But I say unto you that for us in Azimio, the issue of cost of living just has to be dealt with, or we will go back to our people and tell them we did our part. Sasa kazi kwenu, you know? So
is the team going to ask Kenyans? Because when you call the Minister for National Treasury and Planning,
yes,
he's the one who brought the Finance Act bill to the House.
Oh, Eric, you must have missed that phase. No, you must have missed that phase, Eric, because Kenyans were invited to submit their views in memoranda. Civil society submitted, Azimio submitted, different groups submitted, and they were listened to. In fact, I attended those sessions. And thereafter, this is now the process that is happening. That thereafter, after all these views were put together, now they're looking at Kenya Kwanza and asking them, you have had Kenya Association of Manufacturers, you've had KEPSA, you've had, economists, you've had Kenyans. What do you have to say? That is what is currently happening. The controller of budget comes in yesterday and says, listen, I have told these people that we are in a hole. I've cleaned my hands. The Auditor General has spoken. So what does Treasury have to say? What does the Ministry of Energy have to say? What are the issues? Then we will leave the negotiators to retreat and hopefully come up with a solution on cost of living. But because from where we sit, it is not as complicated as everybody. It's only complicated because of egos. Because Kenya Kwanza has promised, and then they're wondering, how do we go back to the people and tell them we will put on hold housing? For instance, the housing issue. Is housing, was the way we are approaching housing, are we treating a housing problem or an unemployment problem? If it's a housing problem, are we going it the right way? If it's an employment problem, are we going it the right way? Simple questions.
Dr. Karugu, let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Do I hear you to be saying that if Azimio were in charge and they were the government of the day, and you were in some lofty ministerial position, churning out policies, that you do things differently? Is that what I hear you to be saying?
100% and then some.
All right. Now, are members of Azimio Kenyans? Are they politicians?
Are members of Azimio Kenyans?
Yes.
Members of Azimio are Kenyans.
Are they politicians?
Not all members of Azimio are politicians.
The caucus that is now talking about changes are politicians, are they not? They are the ones who people delegated the power to in one way or the other.
Precisely.
Is that not so?
Precisely.
Yes.
Precisely.
Now, the reason I'm asking this question, I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And why I ask if they're Kenyans. What guarantee? Because what guarantee is there that when you have a Kenyan politician with power, that they'll do something different?
I know. And I hear where you're coming from. I started this conversation from saying that Kenyans have lost trust. And the greatest indicator that Kenyans have lost trust is what is happening in the stock market. Kenya's stock market is the worst performing. People have no trust. People are speaking and saying, we don't trust you. And it's not easy to trust a Kenyan politician. I will tell you that for free. However, you are the ones who elect them into office. So why do you elect people who you cannot trust? So because you elect people based on how many people attend funerals and how many people attend harambes.
Yes. When we elect them,
you
see, when you have a group of people who at some point determine to abuse the trust that has been given to them, it can't be the fault of the person who gave them that trust. Because that's how this discussion sometimes is framed.
The fault comes in when you re-elect the same people. The same complaints move from Uhuru government was not trustworthy, then now Ruto government is not trustworthy. So who is the problem here?
Politician.
Who has elected?
It's not.
It's the person who's given the trust and betraying that trust.
Yes. So you see, the converse of this is a situation where you have a country where we actually express our distrust and mistrust. It would not be pleasant. That we have a nation that continues trusting is a very, very good thing.
It's a good thing.
For this ilk, for this group of people we refer to as politicians. And the imagination that this thing has no limit to its elasticity is a false notion. It does have a limit.
Precisely.
Now, if you
and perhaps that is where we need to get as a country.
Yes.
Where we say,
enough is enough.
Enough is enough.
And can that is enough then be bolstered by two quote-unquote warring sides? I say quote-unquote deliberately because one could argue that it's not really a war, right? To say, look, guys, this is where we are, and this is the cry of Kenyans. Because I'm always thinking about the Kenyan who continues to suffer through this thing. Is there consensus on both sides that actually this is something that we really need to come together on and say, let us fix it? Because if there isn't, it would appear that it would be an exercise in futility.
I can't speak about all issues, but I can speak about the issues that are, for instance, in Bomas. And you have had some that they have agreed upon. And you have had some that they are still deliberating, like cost of living, which Kenya Kwanza had said, it is our business, you have no business even giving us ideas. We are the ones in power, wait for your turn. And we pushed back. So, I cannot give a blanket statement if there is goodwill. And in any case, I am not here to hold fort for any politician to speak about how genuine they are. I don't think I can really say that about politicians generally as a blanket, So Muga is giggling because I can't purport to say,
Can't speak for someone else.
I can't speak for anybody else. I can only speak about the agendas that are on the table. To say, so far, there has been sufficient goodwill to canvass the issues. And where there has not been goodwill, we are pushing back. And to assure Kenyans that at such a point that Azimio feels that the issue of cost of living is not addressed in a way that is beneficial to Mwananchi, who went to the streets, who was killed, then we will not be shy of walking out and saying, let this dialogue collapse. And that I say because I know that I have also consulted with the principals and they are of the same thinking.
Dr. Karugu, we have a watershed moment here. I had rather hoped that you'd be able to speak for other politicians, because then you would give a vote of confidence and you tell us that you actually trust them. That you don't.
Where does it leave the rest of us?
No. I am a Kenyan.
Where are we, really?
Muga, I am a Kenyan just like you. I have walked through the journey of being a Kenyan just like you have. I have been lied to. And women are very trusting. In fact, the people who are hurting most in this country now, if I was going to speak as a chair of Women's League, is women. Because women are very trusting. And we are lied to very often. And that is why campaigns are done based... the major campaigners, if you want to be a good politician, are women. Even though you go out and say 50%...
Listen to the promises
Of
of a naked man.
yes.
50% of our cabinet will be women, 50% will be men. You don't accomplish it. Women still give you that benefit of doubt.
Yeah.
So as a woman, I want to say, of course I have been hurt. Of course I have trusted politicians and they have failed me. And I am no different from other Kenyans. And I feel their pain of the trust, this trust.
Dr. Gurugu, you're different. You're not like all other Kenyans. You have a voice, you have a position,
Yes.
and you also have had trust placed in you. It's very, very different. And you have had the opportunity to actually represent that trust.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I would not argue with that one bit. But where I was trusted to accomplish tasks, I accomplished those tasks with everything I had, even without a salary. I'm sure you know that. I still went on and I did not go to court.
But they were you paid.
I was paid. Yes, I was paid. I was paid. I can buy you lunch. Finally, the court ordered that I get paid. So those people who send me a message, kamushahara kamefika, they need to know that yes, indeed,